Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a story that is just staggering in its scope. We're talking about the complete history of England. We're going to trace this epic journey from small, ancient tribes surviving on a rugged island all the way to a global powerhouse that fundamentally rewired modern civilization. It's a massive narrative, so let's break it down.
So, here's a question for you. How on earth did an island of ancient tribes build the absolute largest empire in history? It's a crazy paradox, right? Like, how does a small, kind of rainy island go from Stone Age settlements to literally governing a massive chunk of the globe? Well, every single piece of our timeline today is going to help us answer exactly that.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll start with foundations and early invasions, then move to Norman rule and the Middle Ages. Next up is the Tudor Golden Age, followed by Union, Industry, and Empire, and finally, World Wars to modern day.
Section 1. Foundations and Early Invasions, from the Celts to the Vikings.
You know, before any empires even showed up, Celtic tribes were living in these small, tight-knit communities, building incredible mysteries like Stonehenge. But the real physical foundation? That kicked off in 43 AD, when the Romans invaded under Emperor Claudius. 400 years. Let that sink in. That is how long the Roman Empire ruled this island. For 4 centuries, they laid the groundwork of civilization as we know it. We're talking complex road networks, massive forts, and thriving cities, including Londinium, which of course we know today as London. They literally put England on the map before their empire finally collapsed.
And when the Romans finally withdrew, it left a massive power vacuum. Enter the Anglo-Saxons. They quickly arrived from Northern Europe, setting up distinct kingdoms and laying down the absolute bedrock of the English language. But the island wasn't exactly secure. Soon after, you had fierce Viking warriors sailing over from Scandinavia. And they didn't just raid, they actually settled down, intermarried, and kicked off this rapid-fire succession of cultural collisions. It was wild, but it forged a highly resilient new society.
Moving right along to Section 2, Norman rule and the Middle Ages, battles and laws.
Now, you simply cannot talk about English history without mentioning the year 1066. This was a hugely pivotal moment, not just for England, but in world history. It was the year William the Conqueror crossed the English Channel and defeated King Harold II at the famously brutal Battle of Hastings.
And the thing is, William's victory wasn't just a simple change in management. No, it was a total overhaul of the nation's DNA. The Normans completely transformed the government structure, brought in stringent new laws, and totally redesigned the architecture. They brought these massive stone castles to an island that was pretty much just used to timber buildings. It forever reshaped both the physical and the political landscape.
This era also sparked one of the most important legal developments in human history. Before 1215, the king's authority was absolute. Whatever he said went. But that year, facing an intense rebellion, King John sealed— actually, scratch that, he didn't sign it, he sealed it, the Magna Carta. Practically overnight, the monarch was no longer above the law. And while it initially started as kind of a failed peace treaty, this single document ultimately laid the absolute foundation for the modern constitutional law that is used across the world today.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Tudor Golden Age, religion and exploration.
This era is really defined by 2 of England's most famous, or maybe infamous, monarchs, who pushed the country in completely, radically different directions. First, you have Henry VIII, who triggered a massive domestic upheaval by breaking away from Rome just to create the Church of England. Then, his daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, comes along. She stabilized all that domestic turmoil and pushed the country's ambitions outward, leading England into a true golden age of global exploration. Elizabeth's reign was largely cemented in the year 1588. Against absolutely staggering odds, her forces achieved this legendary defeat of the Spanish Armada. And sure, they were aided in part by some devastating storms that the English enthusiastically dubbed the Protestant Wind. But it was a stunning military victory. It signaled to the rest of the globe that England was now an untouchable maritime powerhouse.
Next up, Section 4, Union, Industry, and Empire, becoming a global power.
So the stage for global dominance was really set in 1707 when England and Scotland officially united to form Great Britain. Soon after that, the Industrial Revolution made Britain the world's leading industrial nation. And this wasn't just about, factories and coal. This was the very engine of empire. They were producing, inventing, and shipping more goods than anyone else on the planet.
And the result of that industrial engine was a mind-boggling scale of expansion.
During Queen Victoria's reign, the British Empire became the largest in human history. At its peak, it ruled over nearly a quarter of the world's entire population. Just think about that for a second. Think about the sheer logistical, cultural, and political weight of a single, small island nation dictating the lives of a quarter of humanity. It's almost hard to wrap your head around.
Finally, Section 5, World Wars to Modern Day, Defense and Legacy.
As the 20th century dawned, this massive global empire found itself tested to the absolute limit. Britain fought fiercely in 2 world wars, enduring immense hardships and playing a key role in defeating Nazi Germany. But, well, the financial and political exhaustion of those victories completely rewrote the world order. In the subsequent decades, a massive wave of decolonization saw former colonies become independent nations, bringing the era of the vast British Empire to a close.
Yet even as its geopolitical border shrank back down to a single island, its cultural footprint remained massive. England today exerts incredible soft power. It remains globally famous for its royal family, its historic castles, and its incredibly rich traditions. The political empire ended, sure, but its deep, layered history continues to fascinate the entire globe.
Which leaves us with a fascinating pivot to consider. How exactly does an empire that once ruled a quarter of the globe transition into a modern cultural icon? From Roman roads shaping our modern highways to the Magna Carta underpinning modern law, the echoes of England's past are entirely visible in the way we live today. So, what lessons can we take from an island that changed the globe forever? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it sparks your curiosity to go explore